Hi guys, welcome to another video. My name is Chloe if you're not familiar with my channel, and I post a lot of bookish content, reading vlogs, book reviews, etc. Today is going to be our 5th episode of this series where I'm basically re-rating all of my reads from 2025 month by month. In the last video, we covered May, June, and July because I only read 2 books each month leading up to my move from Texas to Florida. And in this video, we are talking about August and September. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and let's just get straight into it. I have my little thing of notes, like always. I think I rated almost every book that I'm going to talk about in this video 5 stars, which has not been the theme in my videos from the earlier half of this year. I think this is the point when my reading really kind of switched gears to different genres, different authors, and I started to read more for quality than quantity, because at first I was like, oh my god, I just want to read a lot, I want to hit my reading goal, etc. And I was taking a lot of TikTok recommendations, which was very disappointing a lot of the time. But this is the time of year where I really just kind of started to switch gears, and so I liked a lot of my reads a lot more. We are starting with This Is How You Lose the Time War. This Is How You Lose the Time War is a novella. It's sci-fi and sapphic, which is always a plus in my book. I have not read a whole lot of science fiction in the past, but I was excited to get into it. I'd heard some great things about this book from other readers on Fable, which is the reading tracking app that I use. I will say it was very wordy, but I think it was meant to read more like poetry at a lot of different parts of the book. We were definitely getting some very poetic lines. I'll try and put a few on the screen that I especially highlighted for the book review I posted on Substack. I thought that the author used some amazing plot devices like foreshadowing. By the end of the book, my mind was fucking blown. I was just in awe. I couldn't believe as soon as things were happening, I was like, oh my god, I remember this, and I remember that, and I remember that. Like, everything is lining up and making sense. Next, we're gonna talk about the Emily Wilde series. So I actually read the first Emily Wilde book back in January, but I forgot to include it in my January video, so we're including it here since I read the second one this month. As a series, I haven't finished it. Another book out that I have not read yet. But so far, as a series, I'm giving it 5 stars. This is a romantic fantasy, or I guess romantasy as people would call it. Emily Wilde is a professor of Druidology at Cambridge University in the UK in the early 1900s. So this also has a historical fantasy aspect to it. And she is writing this, in the first book, she's writing this encyclopedia of fairies, which has never been done before. So we follow her in her research, and her friend Bambleby comes along. The second book, she's working on a map of the Otherlands, which has also never been done. So we follow her as she's trying to help Bambleby in this quest to get back to his home because he is a fairy. First and foremost, I've said it before, there's something about proper yearning in books just really gets me. And the way that Heather Fawcett wrote Wendell Bambleby just steals my heart. If I had to choose a number 1 book boyfriend, it would probably be Bambleby. The way that he worships and loves Emily is just unlike any other, and he wouldn't change anything about her. He loves Emily's kind of odd. She kind of gives Sheldon Cooper, like she's very Sheldon Cooper coded, and he wouldn't change anything about her. He doesn't dislike anything. He just loves her as she is, and it's so, so, so beautiful. Another thing I love about both of Heather Fawcett's books is these side characters are so likable. Like, they may not necessarily be likable at first, but they grow on you and you just end up loving them by the end of the book. In the first book, we had all these different village people from this island she was visiting in the equivalent of Iceland. In this book, we had I don't remember if he's the dean of their college from Cambridge, and her niece, and I just fell in love with both of them. In both of the books, part of what made them so enjoyable was the side characters. I would definitely recommend to anybody, if you're a fan of Assistant to the Villain, I would recommend it. I feel like they definitely fit in the same little like genre box. Like, it's a very niche box in the corner of romantasy, and I feel like they fit in together. Next, I read Remarkably Bright Creatures. This was actually, so one of my friends graduated nursing school back in May, and she and I decided to start a little 2-person book club. I bought her this book as a graduation present, so it was the first one that we read, It was another one that my mom had been asking me to read forever because she loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. There were so much, the cast of characters was so interesting. I've read one other book where like one of the main characters is this old retired person, and I love reading from their point of view so much. They have so much love and wisdom, and they're so funny. And we also had like a 20-something, mid-20s guy, I think he was in his mid-20s or almost 30, who is just got to get his shit together. They were a hilarious duo. Their story really moved me. I loved the chapters from the octopus's point of view. That was fascinating to me. The level of connections, the theme of closure, and getting to read it with my friend and discuss it was just so fun. It was so fun to come up with our little predictions, and try and guess what was going on, what everybody was thinking and feeling before we read it. Number 4, it was the first nonfiction book I read this year, and that is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This did take me like a month to read, I want to say. I rated it 5 stars, and instead of trying to find words to tell you guys about it and how much I loved it, I am going to put screenshots of quotes that I loved while I was reading it. The book is a collection of essays that John Green wrote about the Anthropocene, and the Anthropocene is basically this idea of how human beings have shaped the world. So this collection of essays covers so many different things. They have very interesting titles and premises. And as I was reading it, I was taking pictures because it was a library book. So I was taking pictures of pages and like highlighting on my phone, posting it on TikTok, just sharing my thoughts. So I'll take some of those and put them around for you guys to read to kind of show you how much I loved it and like the type of things that he was writing about, because it was one of the best books I read this year. Now we're getting into September. In September I read 2 books, but they were 2 big books and 2 books outside of my usual genres, I feel like. First and foremost, we had the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I picked this book up when my mom was reading it for her book club back in Texas, and 2, it was on the BOGO 50% off table at Barnes & Noble, and we were in September leading up to October. I was feeling spooky. I was like, I need a kind of funny, goofy October read, because the title to me implies funny, goofy, silly, haha. Let me tell you what it was not. This was a horror novel. I did not look into it at all. I just picked it up. My mom was like, oh, I'm reading it for book club. I can't wait. I just snagged it. I said, okay, I'll read it too. And then my aunt was reading it. So we were all reading it at the same time. And I read it in one night. I couldn't sleep. It's a horror novel. I did not sleep. There was no turning my lights off. It was not happening. I was like, I'm finishing this, and then I guess I'm just watching TV because there's no way I'm going to be able to sleep. The horrifying descriptions of some of the scenes literally made me get goosebumps, made my skin crawl. I had to like get up and walk around my room. Absolutely horrifying. I'm not sure that I've ever read a horror novel before. So this being an introduction, I'm glad this is my introduction to horror. Obviously I need to read more to be able to say like I cannot think there's another one, a better one out there, but I just think it was really cool for an introduction. Also, I made it all the way to the end of the book thinking that Grady Hendrix, the author, was a woman because of how well the female characters were written. I tend to avoid male authors because I have been sorely disappointed over and over and over and over again by the ways that they write women and the way that women think and the way that women connect with the worlds, the objectification of them. I've been traumatized by some of these male authors out there. To read this book and dead ass think that this man was a woman, and really, I was convinced when my mom said it was a man, I was like, you've got to be mistaken. Like, we're both confused over a pen name. And I was Googling and I was like, no, this is a man. The way that he wrote women and the way that they were thinking and interacting with the world was just phenomenal. Grady Hendrix also did a really good job at examining the racism and sexism prominent in Southern North Carolina in the 1970s. And the way that sexism and racism were still so rampant and they were used as justification for this, that, and the third. The way that people of color were not taken seriously when their children were going missing. It was heartbreaking and really hard to read about, but also so important to read about because I don't think people realize how recent and how this stuff is still ongoing. Because I'm saying this, the way I'm saying it now makes it sound like it's in the past, none of this is history yet. This is all still happening, and it's such an important thing to be touched on in fiction so that people can hopefully start drawing those parallels and get it through their heads that this is happening now. We still have children of color who go missing, still have less resources being sent to find them. For that to be covered in this book was really nice to see, especially because unfortunately it seems like nobody gives a crap sometimes unless they themselves are impacted or are a person of color. Honestly, I was more scared of the female main character's husband than I was of the actual monster, and that's saying something. After I finished the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, I then read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This was a book I found at the library. I've heard a lot about her Goldfinch, but I was not ready to read a 1,000-page book. And as I've said before, I love to start with authors' lesser known books and then move up. And I don't know if The Secret History is necessarily lesser known, but it was lesser known to me because I knew primarily of The Goldfinch. I read The Secret History. It took me forever to read. It was not a long book necessarily. I want to say it was maybe 500 pages, but not even that. But the pacing and the language were sometimes a little bit difficult for me. So I did give The Secret History of 4.5 stars. Still, I just struggled with the pacing at parts. First and foremost, my first thoughts while reading this, and I posted on TikTok about it, was what the hell is wrong with Richard? Why does he read like a psycho? He reads like he's antisocial personality disorder. Like he's very disconnected from his emotions, and it was really freaky. It also reminded me of Robin's dad in Babel, who's also named Richard, and that's how I discovered that there's apparently just like a collection of books, fiction, where there's a crazy Richard in it. And I saw a TikTok that was like, oh my gosh, if you know, you know, this is the What the Fuck Richard trilogy. And I have now read 2 of that trilogy, and the 3rd one is on my bookshelf. So Richard really scared me throughout the entire book. He routinely frightened me. This was another example. I talked a bit in my last video about Babel by R.F. Kuang and how I love the found family trope, and I love the more cursed spin on it too. This is another example of that cursed spin-off. I'm not going to spoil anything, but again, just the intimacy and rawness of these students' relationships with each other and their friendships, and watching as it grows and evolves and then slowly begins to crumble and devolve was so fascinating. It was so well done, and it was horrifying, honestly. There were parts of it that had me like, what the actual hell is going on right now? Some major themes in this book were pride and love. I found it really interesting the lengths that they would go for each other to prove to each other that they were this way or that way, etc. Especially Richard, the lengths that he would go to appear higher class than he was, and his inability to ask for help when he needed it, like I said, bordered on psychotic. It was crazy. Those are the books that I read in August and September. And I personally feel like they were some really good reading months. Nothing was rated under 4.5 stars. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more of my content, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave comments if you have any recommendations for books I should read or review. Also, you can always check out my TikTok. I post on TikTok multiple times a day about whatever it is that I'm reading or doing. And that's where you can get sneak peeks to some of my YouTube content on there. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.